Good evening, and welcome to Here's the Life with Zemrah and Ed, right here at IntellectualRadio.com. And we are so excited, like I stated on my post this morning. We're so very, very excited to have live with us Ms Billie Jean Gray, who, like I say, she was on the phone with us back in May. And I'm so excited about her book, The Heart Endures. But she represents my philosophy that age is nothing but a number. As long as you can walk and talk and breathe, I say keep it moving. And she is a witness and my hero to that fact because she is a beautiful, beautiful lady, 86 years old, and have written, the epitome, and has written the book that we talked about, The Heart Endures. And this is easy reading, beautiful reading. And we're going to do some talking about the loss of her son. I mean, we talked on the phone about segregation and her college experiences with racism. She's a trailblazer, and she might touch a little on that, but we're basically going to talk about the loss of her son, which happened in 2016. And she's just going to give you some points on so many things. But the relationship with her son was just so powerful and so wonderful. A handsome young man that did go through a lot. So I just want to just talk a little bit about her as an author, which is Billie Jean Gray is an educator, mentor, workshop facilitator, and grief recovery specialist, whose life and work have been rooted in service, advocacy, and healing. A lifelong champion for justice and opportunity. She has spent decades mentoring young people. She loves young people, supporting communities and helping others navigate resilience, and personal transformation. Over the course of her distinguished career, Billie served as a social worker for the Cook County Department of Public Aid, school teacher, a classroom school teacher for elementary students and students with learning differences, an assistant superintendent for the Chicago public school system, and a national educational consultant and trainer. Her leadership and commitment to equity have impacted countless lives across education, community engagement, and personal development. Today, Billie continues to teach grief recovery classes, facilitate workshops, and serve as a trusted mentor to individuals seeking hope and healing after the loss. Through The Heart Endures, she shares not only her story, but also a message of courage, faith, perseverance, and enduring power of love. I don't know how I'm getting so tired. I guess I'm excited too. So anyway, Billie, we're gonna go right into everything and want you to just take charge and to share with us this good book that you have taken the time to write, which was an encouragement from your son.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank you and Ed and Greg.
No, that's
Earl.
Earl.
Okay. And Earl
Close.
for having me. This is my first time in a studio.
Oh, awesome.
So I have my jitters.
Oh, you don't have to.
That. But it's a wonderful experience. I'm humbled and I'm very grateful. I wanted to read a little from the back of my book, which really tells what the book is about. The book is called The Heart Endures, A Life of Courage, Loss, and Living Fully. Born under Jim Crow and never expected to survive, Billie Jean Gray lived through the very history America struggles to remember. As a child, she survived devastating medical odds, racial terror, and the silence forced upon Black families in the segregated South. As a young woman, She became a civil rights trailblazer before the nation was ready to see her humanity fully. As a mother, she endured profound personal loss while fighting to keep faith, memory, and truth alive. In The Heart Endures, Gray does more than tell her story. She bears witness to a generation whose pain, courage, and perseverance shaped America while too often going unheard. Written with honesty, dignity, and unwavering faith, this memoir is a portrait of survival, motherhood, grief, resilience, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. This is not simply one woman's story, it is American history remembered by someone who lived it.
Yes.
This book was born out of love and loss, and it contains 19 chapters. Of course, in the interest of time, we won't be able to cover the 19, but I wanted to take chapters 16, 17, 18, and 19.
Yes.
And these are the chapters about a mother's love and a mother's loss. And I want to just read a few sentences from each of those chapters.
Please do.
You know, Zemrah, every day we hear about mothers losing their children. We hear it from our friends, we hear it from our relatives, and we hear it from the news. Every day, a
Every
mother
day.
has lost her child. And it doesn't matter whether it was by accident, violence, suicide, or illness. There is no grief like the grief of a mother who has lost her child. There's a hole in your heart that leaves a scar that is forever a reminder of what you will no longer have. I'm one of those mothers. And the chapters that I'm going to share with you tonight are about that love and that loss.
Okay.
And I will start with chapter 16.
Yes.
Chapter 16 is called The Grateful Heart. Tim and I had our Mother's Day routine. As soon as Tim picked me up from the airport, we would go to eat at his favorite restaurant where he knew the chef and had even taken cooking lessons. After that, we would go resale shopping for 3 or 4 hours. Tim was extremely patient with me, and when we went shopping, and he never complained about how long I took in each store.
Yeah.
I often told him that the highlight of my visit was resale shopping in Atlanta because the shops there were better than the ones in Chicago. That evening, we would go to dinner at our favorite Mexican restaurant, known for having the best margaritas in the city. We were into our second round of margaritas when Tim told me that he had a special surprise for me. He had scheduled an appointment the next morning with StoryCorps for him to interview me. StoryCorps is a nonprofit organization founded in 2003 based on the belief that everyone has an important story to tell and that every story matters.
Mhm.
The organization records and preserves these stories in its archive. I'd never heard of StoryCorps and had several reasons why I did not want to go. I was certain I would have a hangover from the margaritas. The interview was scheduled early in the morning and located outside of Atlanta, which meant at least an hour's drive. We would have to get up much earlier than I preferred.
Mhm.
Tim had not given me any questions or time to prepare. At that time, I didn't even believe I had a story worth telling. And quite frankly, I would have preferred to spend that time
Shopping.
continuing my resale shopping.
Yeah.
The more I resisted, the more determined he became. He seemed unusually disappointed that I did not want to participate. and I could feel how much this meant to him. Eventually, I relented and agreed to go. I hugged and thanked him after the interview and told him how grateful I was that he had insisted on us doing this project. He then asked me to promise that I would write a book about my life. I told him I would think about it, but reminded him that I was not a professional writer. He responded, Mom, just write your book.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a professional. You are a history maker who is leaving a legacy, and you deserve to be mentioned in the history books along with other civil rights leaders. I promised him I would write my story. Chapter 17, The Worried Heart.
Well, let me just
Oh,
ask you
sure.
this: what made you so reluctant to writing and telling your story? Because truly, you did have a story, and I mean, he saw that. So why were you so reluctant? Because you felt you was not a writer per se, or you
Yes.
didn't? Yeah.
I didn't think I was a writer. And I ended up taking some classes to that. And then I really thought that there were so many people who had a story like mine, that mine wasn't that much different from a lot of other people. And that's when he said, well, let them tell theirs too.
That's
But
right.
you make sure you tell
Yeah,
yours.
I'm
Yeah.
really glad that he
Yes.
insisted on that.
Yes.
Okay.
I am too, because it may just still be in my head
Yeah,
had it not been.
that's
Well,
right.
you're giving a face on other mothers who have their own story to tell.
Yes. There, and then I did realize it will be a help to other mothers who don't know how to come forth,
Right.
especially in the area of grief, who don't have an outlet and who don't say like journal, which
Mhm.
can then end up being a story.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think one of the things too, like we always say, that a lot of people when they get older, I was talking to somebody last week, and she was saying that she's put down a lot of information where she's thinking about writing a book, but she said, but I'm getting older now, and I just
Right.
don't think. I said, don't let
Mhm.
that stop you.
Mhm.
So it was good that your son had that vision for you, because this is going to be a very, very phenomenal book,
Mm. That's
and it
history.
will help. It
And
is
that's
history.
history.
You are a
And
trailblazer.
it is history.
Yeah,
It
because
is
you've
history.
gone through a lot.
I
I
have.
mean, young.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Very young.
yeah.
That's true. Chapter 17 is called The Worried Heart. Tim died on June 14th, 2016, from bile duct and liver complications along with sepsis. His body failed before he had the opportunity to meet with a transplant team at the University of Chicago. I believe in my heart that he was tired and ready to move beyond his suffering. He had been fighting to live for 16 years longer than anyone had expected. The brave warrior was finally at peace.
Hmm.
And I dedicated the beginning of the book to him. It says, Dedication for Tim. This book would not have been written without your encouragement. Even in moments when I doubted myself, you believed my story mattered and deserved to be told. Although you did not get to read the pages, your presence lives within every chapter, every memory, and every word written from the heart. You inspired this book more than you will ever know. With all my love, Mom.
Yes. And I thought that was beautiful too, how the segment that you had in the book about him letting him, you knew he was okay, and that he
Yes,
was tired of
he
struggling
was
and
tired of
suffering,
struggling.
because that was a
Right.
long time.
Yes, that was six. He lived 16 years longer than it was predicted that he would live.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the
Yes.
disappointment he had when you took him to Mayo,
Right. All of that.
and
Right.
then the University of Chicago, which they thought maybe it would be some hope with that,
But he
but
never
he
got there.
never got an opportunity because he
He
took
was
sick
caught in
again.
between too healthy and too sick, and
Yes.
that's what happens sometimes with transplants.
Yeah.
Right.
That that
Yeah.
that was That was a lot. But then when you wrote out the fact of, Mom, I'm okay. I don't have to be suffer
Yes,
anymore,
right, right.
because he had truly, that was a long illness. And you were telling me a little bit before we started, what happened. You said it was hereditary.
It was hereditary. Three cousins died before the age of 45 from the same condition. And we didn't know it at the time when two were brothers. And it's so important to know your genetics.
It
And a
is.
lot of times we don't take it seriously enough until it's too
Yeah,
late.
because a lot of times people throw that off.
Yeah,
They don't believe that it can be generic, but
exactly.
it
Exactly.
can, and
Exactly.
that's why it's
Right.
important with everything.
Right.
Now, I wanted to ask too. You go through struggles. When you're married and and when people take sick or whatever. How and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I can imagine how you felt. He loved his wife when they got married and everything. What happened that she just because he was ill? I knew she might have wanted to have children or whatever, but
I think a couple of things. I think she was wounded before they got married because she had an abusive father
okay.
and her mother was wounded. And then I think his illness just added to
It
their
scared
issues.
her.
I think part of it was that it scared her. And I think she didn't see a future of certainty. I mean, they could plan something and he would be sick and in the hospital, and they would be on a trip and he could get sick. So I think it was just a lot for her.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were able to just go on and accept that, and I
Yes.
mean, you almost
Yes.
had to anyway.
I had to.
Yeah.
I had to. I
But you
I
saw him
hurt
kind
for
of struggle
him.
behind that. That's what I was fixing to
Yes,
say.
I hurt for how sick, how hurt he was, and I wanted to say, you're already fighting a physical illness.
You don't need an
I
emotional.
hate to see you fight an emotional illness too, but he did.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot because when you talk about marriage, it's for better or for worse. And it just seems like, that's when you're really supposed to buckle down and stick by
Hmm.
your mate. But if
Hmm.
she was going through, everybody has, how they feel about something. But that's the time you're really supposed to stand.
And the irony of all this is she died several years later, the same age that he was when he died from lupus.
What?
She had lupus
We
when they
didn't,
got married.
we didn't read that.
Really,
Hmm.
Billy?
Yeah,
That is really
yeah, it
ironic.
is ironic. Right.
Wow. Okay,
So,
I'm not going to break your stride.
no, it's okay. So, chapter 18 talks about the shattered heart. Like a comet blazing across the evening sky, gone too soon. Like a rainbow fading in the twinkling of an eye, gone too soon. Shiny and sparkly and splendidly bright, here one day, gone one night.
Mhm.
There were days when my grief was so unbearable I couldn't get out of bed. And there were other days when I had the energy to clean my house from top
Top
to
to bottom.
bottom.
Mhm.
That's the way grief operates, with a roller coaster of energy and emotions. I would go from down to up and back to down again. My emotional highs and lows, along with the fluctuations in my energy, were draining me. And while these roller coaster emotions were occurring, I was trying to settle Tim's affairs and plan his memorial. Grief doesn't take a holiday just because a person is suffering emotionally. I thought about my life before Tim's death and all the joy that filled it. I thought about the happy woman I had been, a woman who had many friends and acquaintances, who loved to socialize, and who was always looking for the next party. I thought about the woman who loved jazz and jazz cruises. What happened to this woman? I longed for her return. The unthinkable happened when her only child died. I became a different person. I was a shell of my former self. I had lost my light, and my only goal was to survive each day to the best of my ability. I was living a new normal. For me, sadness had replaced joy, anger had replaced compassion, seclusion had replaced socializing,
Mhm.
and my emotional well being had been replaced with guilt, remorse, and regret.
Now, you were an awesome, awesome mother. You all did a lot of things together, like
We
going to
did.
dinner. I mean,
We
you know,
did.
you even,
We
when he
did.
got sick, you even went and went to Atlanta, got a condo,
I
purchased a
did. I
condo,
did.
you know.
Right.
So you did a lot. Why did you? And I know we always feel like it's something that we're missing, that we feel that we can do
Mhm.
or something. But
Yeah.
you did everything that you could do.
And this part, as to what you're saying, is where I struggled with what could I have done differently.
Right.
I was still in deep emotional pain and becoming more angrier every day, which seemed to be turning into depression. I was mad at God, the doctors and other hospital staff, Richard, Tim's father, and a long list of other people. Mostly, I was angry with myself and had become consumed with guilt. What could I have done differently? Why didn't I see how ill
He
Tim
was.
was?
Hmm.
Why didn't I take Tim to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, instead of a satellite in Jacksonville, Florida? Even though Tim seemed to have complete trust in the doctors at Northside in Atlanta, why didn't I challenge them more? Why didn't I insist that he be referred to a transplant doctor earlier? I could never know if any of this would have extended Tim's life. I do know that during his short time on earth, Tim lived a full and joyous life. This was a comfort to me, as was knowing that Tim understood how deeply he was loved by so many people, especially by me.
Yes.
And now I think you want me to offer some suggestions, or you want to have
Well, now
other
what
comments?
I wanted to ask too on that, when something like this happens and people are, I mean, everybody handles grief different. That's why it's good
Right,
to have a grief
right.
counselor. But what causes people when they go through that? Because I've had a couple of friends where that's happened, where because like you and I talked about, if you haven't experienced that,
If you
then
haven't
you really
walked in
can't
those
say,
shoes,
you know.
exactly. Right.
But what really can you explain that causes people to shut down after that when they have friends and relatives that are trying to reach out and trying to show some type of compassion or whatever? Again, if you're not walking in my shoes, you can't necessarily
Mhm,
expound on that, but I
mhm.
just wanted to know what your feelings are as to why, what made you shut down. You were an excellent mother, you did. And then Tim also, because he didn't want you to worry, he kept
Right.
a lot of stuff from you too.
Yes, he did.
So
Yes, he
that was
did.
kind of hard too.
Yes,
If
he
you're
did.
here,
Right.
and then so um, what really made you just shut down? The hurt, the
I think that when we lose anyone that we love deeply, we're affected by it. It can
absolutely.
affect us physically or emotionally. And I think even my friends, closest friends, had a hard time understanding that I had a new normal that they didn't have. Because the Billy that they always knew was the one that when you called and said, let's go somewhere, I was ready to go. You
Mhm.
know that because I've seen you out
Yes,
at your events.
yes.
Um, and I couldn't do that because a piece of me was no longer here. And that peace would never be as it was. And as I say in the book, I longed for that woman to come back.
Yes. Yeah.
But you don't just wake up one day and say, okay, I'm healed and I don't hurt anymore. It's not that easy,
Not for a mother. Absolutely
which
not.
goes into the next chapter, which talks about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can share
Okay.
that.
It's called The Healed Heart. Healing after the loss of a child isn't a race to the finish line. It's an individual journey, and the timeline is different for each of us. I went through a lot, including getting therapy.
Mhm.
And that's what made me decide to become a grief counselor because I saw other people with the same pain. We were in a new club that nobody wanted to be a member of, but we were a member of a We Lost Our Children club.
I saw that.
So some of the tools that I included in the book were because I was not only wanting to help myself heal, but also to reach out to help others. And can I go into my, what I
Absolutely.
found was forgiveness.
Hmm.
Forgiveness is the key to finding peace. You can say, well, you can't, well, why would you have anything to forgive about someone that died? A lot. They left you. They left you in pain with a hole. Sometimes the relationship wasn't healed, right? And you're left with that. And there are two kinds of forgiveness that I believe we have to have before we can find peace. One is forgiving others,
And
and the
forgiving
other
yourself.
is forgiving ourselves.
Yes.
Forgiveness of others is not for them.
Hmm.
The sometimes insensitive and negative actions of people have hurt us, but our continuing to carry resentment towards them hurts us, not them.
Hmm.
The people who hurt us may have died or moved on with their lives. It does not mean we condone their behavior. We forgive others so that we can be made whole. And I have several points on that, and I'll just touch on three. Release the anger and let it go. What happened cannot be changed or rewritten, but you do not have to allow it to rob you of peace for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
Write a forgiveness letter to someone who has died. This can be especially helpful if part of your grief includes anger over being left behind, or if you had some unresolved issues
Issues.
when the
Yes.
person died.
Hmm.
And believe that love makes healing possible. When you choose forgiveness through love, hope can begin to grow again, even after deep hurt. And to quote Nelson Mandela, when a deep injury is done to us, we never heal until we forgive.
I love that.
And self forgiveness is sometimes more difficult than forgiving others because it often comes with guilt and our shame for the things we wish we had done differently or not done at all. We blame ourselves for not being able to change the outcome. We are shameful of some of our choices and behaviors. Our list of things for which we can forgive ourselves can be extensive and can go on and on. So, 3 points I just want to touch on with self forgiveness. Accept what happened and seek peace with it. Healing begins when you stop fighting the reality of what cannot be changed. Recognize that some things are beyond your control. Not every painful outcome could have been prevented, no matter how deeply you loved someone. And the last, replace negative thoughts with truthful and positive ones. Speak to yourself with kindness instead of criticism. And as Les Brown said, and I will quote, forgive yourself first. Release the need to replay a negative situation over and over again in your mind. Don't become a hostage to your past by always reviewing your mistakes. Don't remind yourself of what could have, would have, or should have been.
Mm-hmm.
Release it and let it go. And as I end this chapter and the book, I say about your journey from grief to grace. I hope you will find these tools helpful. All of us either have experienced grief or eventually will. We are always one text message, email, phone call, or knock on the door away from either grief or
Oh,
grace.
grace.
So I encourage you to live your life as fully as possible each day. Let go of any anger, pain, or unforgiveness toward yourself or others that you may still be carrying in your grief backpack. And always let the people you love know that you love them. Let your last words be words you will want someone to remember.
Yes.
And I say that because the day that my son died, I was at the hospital and I was leaving to go down to the cafeteria. And I said, I love you.
Yes.
And he said, I
I
love
love you
you
too, Mom.
too.
Yeah.
And those were our last
Last
words.
words.
Right.
Yeah. That is just, and it's, and one of the things too that that I saw that I thought was kind of significant too is to not spend your energy trying to hurt those who hurt you.
Right.
You know, a lot of people don't look at that. Bitterness and revenge will drain your spirit. Forgiveness, back to forgiveness, is not for freeing them. Again, it's for freeing yourself, and we always say that.
We always, and I say that acid corrodes the vessel that holds it.
Whoa.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that's what people have to understand, that you can hold on to things uh, for always, but what good does it do?
It doesn't. It just continues to eat at you because in most cases, as I said, those people that they've already gone on with other lives, other marriages, other
Yeah.
families, everything.
Yeah,
And we can still be mad.
that's right.
Right.
And for what? I mean,
Right.
what good does it
Exactly.
do you?
Billy,
None.
Exactly.
Billy, let
Right.
me ask you something. Do you find that some of the people in your grief ministry that there's something comforting in while in grief that that's why they stay in it so long?
From to in being in grief.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that what happens, we become accustomed to the grief. Sometimes we get attention from the grief. Sometimes we become a victim and we get attention by becoming a victim. And the people that tell the same story over and over and over
Right.
have gotten grief has become so much a part of who they are that they don't know, I feel, how to move past that. And some people spend the rest of their lives in this grief.
I think that grief has an order to it. There's a certain time to grieve and a certain limit to it when you should stop. Beyond that is definitely not good for you. So it's okay to grieve. For grief is fine for a minute or a day or a month or a year or whatever. But there's a time limit on it when you have to let it go. And people don't want to let it go.
They don't want to let it go. As I said, they have,
It's
they
become a
get
part
some,
of
it
them,
has become a part of
and
them.
they don't know how. That's
They don't know
probably what
how.
it is.
And it's very hard without getting some type of help to let go of grief.
So when you ended your grief, did it begin with helping somebody else with theirs?
Mm.
That always helps.
What I do, I conduct grief classes.
Mhm.
Mainly, I have been conducting them at St. Benedict Church in Inglewood.
Mhm.
And in the classes, it's an 8-week class, and you're taught tools. Some of the ones that were in the book on how to really take a look at your grief and where you are with it, why you're still holding on to it, and things to let go. And what I find, I was trained by the Grief Recovery Institute in Oregon and certified by them. Grief is cumulative. You may start out, the grief of losing my son was not my first grief. It was my deepest grief. I was ill, I was divorced. All of those are can be areas of grief. So then when you just build on those, then you have what I call a tsunami, where you have a major grief. It becomes too much. And I have an example I mentioned here. I in one of the classes I call "What's in Your Backpack," and we have stones that we write grief, different things like illness. There are 40 areas of grief. Death is just one. Death, divorce, and diagnosis are the three main ones.
Mhm.
And when I write on the grief stones, like if you pick up one and put in your backpack, that's illness. Then there's divorce. Then there's unemployment. There are a lot. So after a while, your backpack
It's
becomes too
heavy.
heavy
Yes.
and it weighs you
You
down.
carried it around.
Yeah, you carry it around. Right.
But,
I
but
love the way you put that.
I have, my mom had 8 children, 5 boys, 3 girls. I had 4 brothers. Now I have one.
Wow.
And I'm the oldest.
Wow.
So I'm kind of familiar with grief.
Yes.
But there's only so much grief you can do because I understand that I am not in charge of life and death.
Right.
I'm not responsible. I don't have the power to say who lives or who dies.
Right.
So when somebody goes, I look for a reason, or I look for it's just a challenge. And as my grief period ends, life has to begin and keep going after that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what life is. So there's only so much grieving you should be allow yourself to do.
But do you think that men do grief different than women?
Yeah.
Just like when we talk about uh, parents, it's nothing like the loss of a child where a mother's concerned.
Right.
I mean, fathers take things different, but then sometimes fathers think a little bit more logical. I mean, they don't take things to the depths like a woman does.
Because
Do you think that?
a man,
I think they do. I think they hurt just as deeply. I think men have been conditioned not to show the hurt.
Okay.
You've got to be strong for others.
Mm.
I had in one of the workshops, I think it was a radio, right? Actually a call in. I think I mentioned a Callahan funeral home,
Hmm.
and it was just grief for African American males. And I was amazed that when the callers would call in, they would talk about, well, I've been taught from a child not to cry.
Oh,
Don't cry. Be strong. Be strong for if you cry, it's going to make me sad. So then I'm going to cry. So I think that starts with our males at a very early age. So I don't think that any father hurts any less when they lose a child than a mother does. I think they show it differently. And what happens, unfortunately, I've had two cases in my group where it ended up with divorce because the mother took the grief so deeply that she felt the father didn't grieve, but he did. He was grieving differently. And he, to your point, didn't want to stay in the grief period forever. And she did. And it affected the marriage.
yeah, I can see that.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's something that a person would have to really uh, pull themselves, find some kind of way to pull themselves out of that,
Yes.
where you let it destroy your marriage.
It depends on your experience in life and
Well, all things,
what
yeah.
happened before that.
Yeah.
And all of those accumulative pain that you've cured
That's
through
what I
life.
was saying. Grief is cumulative.
Yeah.
And then when something happens that nobody understands but you just cut ties with everybody.
Mhm.
You just
Yeah.
make a decision.
Right.
I'm not doing nothing anymore. And that's what happens. People leave. They get a divorce because there's something about him she didn't understand. It was not going to understand. Period.
Mhm.
So it had to end, and the decision had to be made.
Well, it probably was hurting him too to see her at that point like that. And then
And
maybe
then
it
he
became a
had
blame. It might have
right.
become a blame game
He
because that
had
happened.
literally lost her too. she was still living. I mean, so she pulled away. So that happens.
Yes, it does.
Sometimes you don't just lose the person who died. You lose everybody else that was connected to them that's no longer there and available for
Right.
you. To your point about one of the activities in my grief group is where you go back and take a look at your childhood, because most of our grief didn't start when we became an adult.
Oh,
It started somewhere in childhood. Then you
Mhm.
just add, we call them the grief stones, and you just add those to the other.
Mhm.
And sometimes when people have come into the classes, they came in with thinking about one grief, only to really, as I call it, peel the layer off the
Yeah.
onion and find that another grief was actually deeper
and,
than the one they thought.
and sometimes you carry grief from other people, their grief,
Okay.
because you got to be strong for them.
That's where when we were talking about men who were told, be strong for others. And sometimes I was listening to a podcast, and this man said, I was always told to be strong for others. He said, but this time I was the other. So who was strong for
For me,
me?
oh, isn't that the truth?
Right,
Because sometimes that's what happens with
right,
men,
right.
especially if, like you said, if they come up like that.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Now, were you having in the book? It was saying that you were having the heaviness of premonition when you would come down there. And
Yes.
so, what could you kind of describe, if it's not too hard, what you were feeling when you would see him? And
Towards the
even if he was kind of up and moving around
right.
and doing things and building that strong, because he kept himself going. I mean, he would
Yeah,
be
he
sick, but
did.
then he just kept
Did.
himself. So what was what would make you just keep feeling, you were just feeling that?
Well, I think it was a mother's tuition in part.
That's what I'm about to say.
And yeah, I think at the time when Tim first got ill, uh, and I moved to Atlanta later, my dad was ill here.
Mhm.
So I was going
Back
back
and
and
forth.
forth between
Mm.
Atlanta and Chicago. Then my dad passed, and I lived more permanently in Atlanta. But it was 2020, 2014, 2 years before he died. I kept having a feeling. I went down to Atlanta for Christmas, for Mother's Day, and for my
Right, your
75th
birthday,
birthday.
which he
And
laid out.
yes, he did.
Mhm.
Each of those times when I would leave to get back on the plane, for some reason, I wondered if it would be the last time I would see him
Mhm.
there. And I couldn't explain it because he seemed to be doing okay as far as I knew at that time.
Mhm.
But there was just that mother's
Instinct,
intuition.
yeah.
And I think what is so painful about knowing that the end may come sooner than you wanted to is you become almost paranoid about the phone would ring at night.
Mhm.
I would be, oh God, is it a bad phone call? Somebody, my cousin from Atlanta would call, is Tim okay? So you live with my grief. There's something called anticipatory grief.
Yes, you said that.
And that's the worry yourself to death before it actually
It happens,
happens.
yes.
And I think that's what happened with Tim. I started worrying before it happened.
Well, you get well, the spirit is trying to prepare you,
I think so. I think so.
and
I
you
think so.
and you take it to another level.
Right.
You worry every day. They say
Right.
worry is the interest paid on a debt that never comes due.
Hmm.
Because you never
Hmm.
know when it's coming. You can't be prepared for it because
Right. No, you
it's
can't.
always sudden.
You can't.
No matter how you look out for it,
Right.
it's always sudden.
Yes,
So
it is. And you're absolutely right. And I could worry myself to death. But then when it did happen, all the worry I had done didn't help me
you know,
to deal with it anymore.
Because then it
Right.
was a pure
Right.
reality.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Yes.
the good thing is that you still have so many wonderful memories.
Mhm. I do. Right.
The holidays and the
Right.
different things that
Right.
and then you raised a wonderful young man.
I did. He was a Morehouse grad. He was a Emory MBA. Was a
Yes.
manager at AT&T.
AT&T.
Yes, he was a kind human being.
That's what I saw in
Right.
reading. He was a
Right.
wonderful. And what I loved, I just love anybody that any child that honors their parents. You know, they say honor
Yes.
your mother and father and their days will be
Right.
longer. I mean,
Right.
he really honored his mother.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
And we were especially close because I raised him as a single parent.
Yeah.
And for the most
And he
part,
loved, I know, and he loved you for
yes,
that
yes,
because
and
you
yes,
did
he
so many
did.
things, made
Yes,
sure he was, he tickled me when
right.
he was saying he was definite on what he was going to do and not do. He did not want to
Yes.
be no engineer. He was not
No,
going
he
to
didn't
know.
want, and I
He
tried
didn't want to
to.
go to the University of
My
Chicago.
my father forced
Yeah.
me to go to the University of
Yeah.
Kentucky and integrate. I wanted to go to
Go to
Fisk,
Fitz.
and I wanted him to go to the University of Illinois in Champaign because at that time they were looking for African American males, and I
Yeah.
knew one of the people in the department. So all I was thinking about was, "Ooh, I don't have to pay any tuition. He can get a
He
full ride."
thinking about you.
And the more I talked about it, no, I don't want to go there. And my father, who forced me to integrate, took
Agreed with
agreed
Tim.
with Tim.
Yeah.
Agreed with Tim
That
and
was
said, "Oh,
funny.
let him go on to Morehouse." And I'm thinking Morehouse tuition, University of Illinois is free.
Mm.
He can be an engineer. He didn't want to be that either. Wanted to be an accountant.
Yeah.
So, but sending him to Morehouse was the
The
best
best thing you could
decision.
have
The
done.
best
And then
decision.
he knew his friend took him for a
Yes.
tour and
Yes.
everything,
Yes.
and he knew definitely at that point
Right.
this is where I want to be. And it's and when young people know exactly what they want to do when it
Mhm.
comes to that,
Right.
you
It's
can't
hard.
beat that. You
So I
can't.
never got to Fisk. I tried several times,
Yeah.
but I didn't. But for his memorial, one of the things that was so moving was that the man who did the service was his classmate at Morehouse.
Mhm.
The one who did the music was his
Yes.
classmate at Morehouse.
Yeah.
And the one who helped me with the repast and the reception was his best friend from
Mhm.
Morehouse. And the Morehouse, there were about 12 of them who sang the Morehouse song at the end of his service.
Oh
There
wow.
was a brotherhood. That's why I have a scholarship that I set up for
I saw
Tim at
that.
Morehouse.
Yes.
And a part of each book sale will go
Go to
to
the
that.
more.
I have
Yes.
a young man that's now in his fifth year that is in the School of Business on his scholarship. That's right here from Chicago. And it's the best way I know to
Honor
honor
him.
his life.
Yes, that's beautiful, Billy, because he was a Morehouse guy. That's what he
He
wanted.
loved. That's why
He loved it.
he lived in Atlanta. He wouldn't leave
Yes,
Atlanta because of Morehouse.
yeah,
So this book
he loved it.
is good for any mother who lost a child
It is. It is.
let them understand that you know how they feel.
Mhm.
It's
It
not
is.
just a statistic, but exactly what they had to go through and what they're going through now.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And that sorrow may last for a night, but in the morning, joy
Mhm.
comes.
Mhm.
And
And,
every time you think of them, it should not bring a tear to your eye. It should bring a smile to your face.
Mhm.
and that's so true because I say in the grief group that I teach, with the person that you when they come in like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it the next day, and that's how they
Mm.
feel at the time. And I say, with the person that you love so much that died, would they want you to be like this?
That's it.
And I think if you would say no, then that's motivation to make the life worth something and honor the person because the person would not want their death to kill you.
No, oh my God, that is the truth.
Right.
That is really the truth. Well said on that. And and you knew what your son, who he was,
Hmm.
and to honor him, with this book, to finally, I know he smiles down on you right now.
I'm sure. I
Yeah.
said his energy is all in this book.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Because the beautiful pictures and He's just a handsome man, just so
Yeah.
handsome. And he was a precious little baby. And it
Yes.
showed he loved Christmas
Oh,
and about his
he and his
decorating the
grandfather.
trees,
He
his
and his
friends.
grandfather loved Christmas more than anything, and
Yes.
they loved to cook.
And I loved the way his friends came, from they started like at 6,
The
decorating you had a
babies
tree farm.
when he was 7, because I'm so not artistic at all, and I would have a sleepover,
Yes.
and I would put them in the back in the room, and they would decorate his tree, and that became a tradition. So the next day, when the parents would pick them up at noon, they hadn't bathed and they hadn't
Go
had
there,
brushed their
dressed
teeth
in
or
the
anything. They'd had a pancake breakfast and the tree that they
you laid them out.
yeah.
I mean,
And he, to his very last time, even when he wasn't feeling good, he had a big Christmas tree. That was his thing. Right.
wow. And did he love? I was saying that he loved to go shopping early, like 7:30 in the morning.
And
Was that like after
the
the
day
day after
the day
Christmas?
after Thanksgiving or the day
Day
after
after,
Christmas when
right?
there was a
Say,
sale. And I didn't. We would
So
when the
you're the type
stores
of guy.
opened at 7:30,
yeah.
we would be there.
Wow.
Right.
That was awesome. I saw that because I'm a shopper. I love to shop. And when I
Mm.
saw that, I got tickled. I said, a man that loves to shop, he
Yes.
never complained, no matter
No,
what you
no, he
what you
never
want to do,
did.
how many
Right.
resale shops you
All
wanted to
of
go
them.
to. He was right
Atlanta was
there.
full of them. Yeah.
Yes, that was just awesome, Billy. So as far as you've said a lot, as far as people that are grieving, and one of those stones as far as the racism and all that you've experienced, um, how did you really and truly get through that era? I want you to touch just a little bit on that because that is a large portion of the front of the book and all that you
It
went through.
is. Well, this is timely because next week I'm going back to Paducah, Kentucky,
That's going to be
where
awesome.
I integrated the high school in 1956. Most people have heard of the Little Rock Nine,
Mhm.
which came in 1957. They've heard of Ruby Bridges in
Mhm.
1960, but they have not heard of the Paducah Six, who were 1956. And I was one of them. So part of the motivation for this book, and it was also, and for my son to tell the story. We were history before the people that have movies and documentaries and everything. And I think the difference was Paducah was different. It was, of course, in the South, but I think blacks and whites had a peaceful, understood coexistence.
Mhm.
And we didn't have to go out before I integrated Tillman. We didn't have to go out of we had everything in our neighborhood. We
Mhm.
had grocery stores. The doctor lived in our neighborhood. He was our neighbor. The pharmacist, the barber. So
Mhm.
we only had to go if you wanted to dress for something and you went downtown. And the school that I attended, Lincoln, which I say, I absolutely loved it. And we had far less than the school I integrated into. But there was nothing about Lincoln I didn't love. I was one of the youngest to ever be elected as homecoming queen by popular vote. But my dad had a vision that I didn't see at 16. He was vice president of NAACP.
Mhm.
And his sending me, and he was clear about it,
Mhm.
was not because I didn't have good teachers at Lincoln, not because they didn't care about me, but it was for a bigger picture.
Mhm. And he
And
saw it.
and he saw it.
Mhm.
And he said, I cannot ask somebody else to have their
Mhm.
child do what I do. And in terms of the whites at Tillman, the students were pretty much, none of us knew how to navigate this new terrain. We didn't. We were in a space we didn't want to be in, and they were in a space that we had invaded.
Mhm.
But the biggest concern came from the adults. The
Yeah.
students kind of felt in place. You know,
Mhm.
they, even if they weren't overly friendly at first, they were never, I never was called out of my name
And
by a
they didn't really think
student.
that you all wanted to be bothered with
They
them
didn't
either.
think that we wanted to be, because we went to school and we came home. But
Mhm.
the school had told us not to participate. that first year in any of the activities. And there was one gentleman, he'll be at the reunion next weekend. He was a football player at Lincoln. And Tillman told him that they could not guarantee his safety if he played outside of the ones for Tillman. And I think, to Paducah's credit, they didn't want to be another Sturgis, Kentucky, which had the National Guard, another Little Rock, which had all kinds of issues. So the NAACP and some of the white organizations worked together to make this as peaceful as possible. Yeah.
That's real. That's really interesting there.
And next week, when we go back, they're going to the reporter that interviewed me. There are two of our white students who want to get together with us so the reporter can talk to all of us at the same time, which is a big step.
That is a major
Yes.
step.
Yes.
So I know
Right.
you're looking forward to that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then so you're starting to do a little short tour, huh? With the book.
Well, I'm going to be in Paducah, and then
Then
I'm
you're going to
going to be
Morehouse.
doing vendor presentation for a senior summit at, I think it's New Faith in Matson.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
be there on the 20th.
All right. And then what was you saying too about possibly where your book will we're hoping that your book will wind up being?
Pardon me?
I said, where did you say that your book hopefully will wind up being after they see how your books are moving on Amazon?
Well, I hope it can be at the historical part of the Obama Center, but that's a dream right now.
But that doesn't have to be a dream. This is a
Right.
powerful book.
Right.
Keep your dreams big.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
But I mean, this book is awesome. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
sure thing.
easy reading, like I said. So, I mean, they're talking about a trailblazer. I can see it there. That would be perfect because, basically, I think they basically have just Michelle's books there and Obama's. So for
Oh,
this to be a part
in the
of the
public
museum,
library.
that
Right.
would be awesome.
Oh, Barnes and Noble is interested.
That's what I was.
in my
Yeah,
neighborhood.
I didn't know
went
what
by
to say,
and
but I
took
wanted you to
them
say it.
and took them the book. When I went by the first time, I didn't have the book. And nobody wants to talk to you until you can show them something.
Right.
So I went by this last time with the book, and they went online and they saw that in whatever they saw, and I told them in less than 2 weeks it had 80 sales on Amazon, and we haven't even really done any marketing. So they gave me the number to call them. They said they have readings for people that live in the community, and it's right in my neighborhood.
Mhm.
So that
Oh, that'll be
I'm telling you,
great.
I'm telling you, every young woman or woman who has lost a child should have this book.
Well, we should say just anybody because the heart endures.
To,
That
Yeah.
goes for
to
man
give,
or woman.
give you some
and
type
and
of
That's the
understanding.
heart of anybody, any grief.
grief.
Yeah.
My first story, whichever we want, my first grief was when I lived with my grandparents until I was 8,
Mhm.
until they took me from my grandparents
Right.
and I went to live with my parents. My leaving my grandfather, who was my first love, and I
Mhm.
talk about it. A lot of children experience those kinds of things that happen, and it just adds to the grief that they have later on.
Ed went through that. His parents, he went through some things
My
with his
grand-
parents, and his grandmother raised him and would not let him go back
Mm.
with his parents until she said, "You will not get him back until you all
Learn
get
how to
yourselves
act."
together and learn
Well,
how to act."
I was wishing that my grandparents had been able to say, she belongs to us. That's what I said in the
Stay
book.
there.
But I didn't. My parents had moved to Paducah, and I was born and raised in Hardingsburg, and not expected to live more than a year
I know you went through a
because I
lot
was
too with her
raised with a
heart.
heart condition.
Yeah.
And it was
Tell us a little
predicted
bit
that I
about
wouldn't
that so
live.
we can hear, so people can hear that too. Tell us a little bit
I was
about what you
born, well,
experienced.
they
Did
call
you
it a
have
blue baby, in the South. They call
rheumatic fever?
No.
no, it was blue baby. It was a heart valve that didn't close, and I was predicted not to live. And then I kept living and living and
If
living.
she couldn't move, she couldn't move a lot. She couldn't do
Right.
a lot.
I
Yeah.
couldn't run. I couldn't get
Give you-
excited. I couldn't do much of anything. And so I didn't go to school until I was 7
Yeah.
because they were afraid that if I caught an infection or anything.
Right.
But the story that's so important to me with that is at age 11, my dad's boss at the time, he was working, he had integrated Tennessee Valley Authority as an engineer.
Mhm.
His boss told him about Mayo Clinic.
Mm.
And the trip to Mayo Clinic reminded me so much of the movie The Green Book because we were driving from Paducah through Iowa, through Illinois to
Mhm.
Rochester, Minnesota, and fearful,
I know
not
that's
being
what you were
able to find a
saying.
place to stay.
Yes.
My mother had, who loved to cook and was the world's best cook, and fixed enough food to last
Ooh, would you
forever.
describe that food?
Yeah,
Fried two,
fried,
she
fried
fried two
chicken and
Because
potato
chickens and
salad.
you afraid,
homemade potato
Right,
salad
because you
and
know you
right.
couldn't stop
pound
anywhere.
cake
You
and
couldn't
all
stop
that.
anywhere.
Stop
And
anywhere.
I thought then as a child, wouldn't it be terrible if we're trying to go somewhere to save my life and we get killed while we're trying to do that?
Wow.
Yeah.
You find that you started out kind of young being a worrier? Kind of do you feel that you were like a worrier, that you worried a lot?
Well, my grandmother was a worrier, and I think I just got, and they worried about my health. You
Mhm.
know, my grandmother would tell everybody that came to visit, they would say, "Oh, she's such a beautiful child." And my grandmother would say, "But she may not be with us very long." You know, that wasn't
Mm.
unusual for people in the
Right.
South to
Yeah.
say that,
Yeah,
well, she
tell you.
may not be with us. And
You were a pretty baby too, by
I
the
was a
way.
beautiful baby. And
Yes.
people would say, "Oh, she's such a beautiful baby." And they would say, "But she may not be with us very long." She kept, which is not unusual either, she kept a burial shroud for me in a truck. You know, in case I died, they, as a baby or a young child,
Really?
they would have something to bury me in.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that
They
was
believed in preparation.
in a, yes, I was going to say that wasn't unusual in the
No, it's not.
South at all.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
But for a child to try to understand that,
That was
it
hard.
was hard.
Yeah,
It was hard.
that was hard.
Right.
Well, so we're just blessing this book and knowing that it's going to be just totally successful.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're gonna.
Thank you.
This is
It
going to be.
already is.
Yeah, it
It
already
already,
is. That's the way
we've
it thinks.
already seen it out there in the universe. It
Yes.
already is.
Yeah, we already
Right.
claim it, and I
Right.
mean, and you got the. I mean, the tool is right here. And to people, what would you tell people that are currently grieving, um, like with things that they loss that they've had for like 2 and 3, 4, 5 years? What would you tell them? Because yours has been a matter of a couple of months, over 10 years.
Yeah,
It's been 10 years.
Yes.
I would say that everyone should find some type of support, whether you do it professionally, whether you do a grief group. If you can't move past, if you feel stuck, I call it stuck in the grief. If you feel, now there's a normal grieving period and it's different for different people.
Mm.
It may be a long time. But if you're stuck and you can't move past that, it's not healthy for you. And this is where you cannot honor the person you love so much who died when you have let it almost kill you as well.
Mhm. So you got to find some type of
You got to find
peace. So you
somebody.
got to
You got to
find,
find peace.
yeah.
I call my group is called From Grief to Grace,
Mhm.
and you have to find a way to move from grief to grace.
And that lettering and that journaling is key.
It is
You know,
key.
especially
It is
writing
key.
that letter of
Right.
forgiveness and mainly understanding that you must find a way to forgive yourself for
Mhm.
whatever reason that you're feeling
Yes.
any type of guilt or any of that. You have to find a way to forgive yourself.
And especially move on from being angry.
Hmm.
That's part
That's
of,
toxic.
yes, it is absolutely
That's a perfect word
toxic.
because that's exactly.
It's toxic to you, the holder of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't. I mean, you can't move. You just can't move forward.
You're stuck. No, because you'll be stuck in there.
Yeah.
And it's you. Like I said, it's not the other person.
Right.
It's you. And anger causes, in my opinion, more grief than almost anything
And more
else.
sickness.
And more sickness.
It
Physical,
does. It
yes.
does because a
Both
lot of
emotional, mental, and
yes,
physical
yes. So you
sickness.
have to,
Right. Right.
and then you have to understand too. You let go and let God
Yeah, you do.
because
Yeah.
things will
Hmm.
work out. Because I had been going through I had gone through a lot when I was in Israel for lived in Israel for 2 years, and my dad died while I was there. Where
Oh.
their philosophy was is I got my stuff, started packing all my stuff up and ready to go, and was going to tell the leader that I told him about my dad passing and everything, and that I wanted to leave, and he told me that I couldn't.
Mm.
And so
Wow.
my daughter winded up leaving. She ran away.
Mhm.
And but I was just and it took me a long time, and I still think sometimes I feel bad, but my mother
Mhm.
brought me comfort by saying, I don't want you to worry, because
Mhm.
your dad would have died even if you had been here, because I
Mhm.
was the baby. I had never been away from home, and for something like that to happen, I felt really bad about that.
I think there's an activity I do in my class where even though you can't say goodbye always to the person, you can write it. You
Mhm.
can write to the person and tell them how you feel, or journal it, either
Mhm.
one, and read it
Mhm.
to them.
Mhm.
I always say, and this is what I can quick point: holidays. I do a special thing called grief in the holidays. One, especially for someone that's died, say like it's the first
Mm,
holiday. Do not act like the person never existed. Sometimes what we do, we think we're doing right by not making people sad. Don't talk about them. Don't mention them. I'm not going to have their favorite food this year because it'll just bring up memories. If it brings up memories, it brings up
that's what it's supposed to
memories.
do.
Mhm.
I said the first year you should have a place at the table
Mhm.
with that person's picture there.
Mm,
And
Mhm.
even if you go around the room and let everybody say something to them, you cannot pretend you didn't love somebody who's gone because you did.
Yes, that's really
because
I
good
do a
there.
whole thing on grief in the holidays because
Okay, that's
it's
good to
important.
know.
if you suppress it, it just comes up
Sure it
some other
does.
way.
Mhm.
It
Illness,
festers and some
anger,
other
Yeah,
kind
you
of.
all
can't
of it.
be
Exactly.
in denial about it.
No.
No,
No.
I totally agree
You
with that.
loved someone, and
Yes, and you
that
lost
hurts
them,
when
and
you
you got to
lose them.
deal with it.
I still
Yes.
say
Yeah,
every thought of them should make you smile, not sad.
I
yeah,
think, and you know what I say in the class when people first come in, they're sad and they have to uncover a lot of stuff. And I say, my goal is to take you, when I say from grief to grace, it's from tears to laughter. And it's a
yes.
continuum to get there.
Hmm. And to see that coming from you, I applaud you, Billy.
So thank you.
And I am so glad that you joined us. You know, our time and just flew that fast, but I'm so glad.
Yes.
And then you had mentioned too that we're going to have that segment where you come back live, and
And
we're
they
going to
can
have some
call in.
call ins. We're going
We
to
can.
designate for people to call in that you can talk to that's
Right.
going through that. So, again, make sure that you can go to Amazon and get The Heart Endures. This is a wonderful book. Again, an easy read, and the whole book is just wonderful. So you need to go to and just go to The Heart Endures, Billie Jean Gray. I'm so glad that you joined us today, and it was a wonderful, wonderful segment. I know I'm very, very thrilled, and I hope that everyone that tuned in, tell your friends, tell your family, anybody that you think that has gone through grief or still going through it, to go to intellectualradio.com, put in Here's the Life with Zemrah, and tell them to check out this segment. I think it's been a wonderful, wonderful way to spend the evening, and I hope that you enjoyed it and that you got something out of this. Again, I am Zemrah, and I want you to make sure that you get your flyer for my concert, October 17th, right at South Suburban College. I'm Zemrah. Again, we always want to thank our producer, Mr. Earl Winfrey, and Wanda B. And you know just what to do. You just think. Love is possible when you believe that you're free. Love is possible when you embrace it with ease. Everything you want is yours for the asking. Love is possible when you believe that it is.